All right, so I already made the seasoning blend. You just get a bowl, and then inside the bowl, we put, I mean, it doesn't have to be this more spice thing. Just whatever your favorite Creole seasoning is, Cajun seasoning. I do about a teaspoon of rosemary. Now, there's a trick with the rosemary, the tarragon, the thyme, and the basil. Those will actually get crushed up in a mortar and pestle. And you want to grind those up until they get to a nice fine powder. All four of these, you want about a teaspoon, maybe even go up to half a tablespoon. And then just grind them up in the mortar and pestle, and then throw those in a bowl. Regular old salt, table salt, iodized salt, whatever you want to call it. That we're going to do about 2.5 tablespoons. Throw that in there. And then the rest of the stuff we're going to do about a tablespoon each. So about a tablespoon each of garlic powder, onion powder, black pepper, white pepper, paprika, and cayenne pepper. Now the cayenne pepper, if you don't want it to have any kind of spice, you can omit this. You can put less of it. Whatever you want to do. It's your own food. You're gonna be the one eating it. So, and that's how we do the spices. Once we get all that stuff in the bowl, you just mix it around until it's nice and mixed together. And this right here is what we're gonna end up seasoning this whole jambalaya with. All right. So the next step, we're gonna get our veggies all cut up. So with our veggies, we got one little bunch of green onions. We got either 3 large, or, you know, if you got a mix of small and large, then you can go just regular yellow onions. You don't want to go anything too sweet like Vidalia onions. I saw this in a video, and he said it just perfect. He said, we ain't trying to make a dessert, we're trying to make a jambalaya. All right, so then here we got red bell peppers. I'm going red just because they give me less gas, and they add good color to it. We got some garlic. We're probably going to do about 4, maybe 5 of the cloves in here, and then about 3 sticks of celery. And that's what we got for the veggies. All right, so we're going to just cut up our meats. I kind of lost track of time. Got myself a little boo-boo. Caught my finger on the knife, but here we got some pork sausage and like 1 link of andouille mixed in there. We got our pork and we got our chicken. We also cut up our vegetables. So right here we got all of our bell peppers, half of our green onions. We got the other half right there that's going to be set aside for garnish. Got our celery in there. And got our onions separate because we're going to cook our onions separate from the rest of this stuff. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little bit of smoking coming from the cast iron pot. I got it on medium heat. So that's about what we want to see. That means the pot is ready for the bacon. So we're just going to cook this bacon down. We're not actually going to have bacon in the jambalaya. We're just using this for the grease, for the bacon fat. So just going to cook this down, and I'll be back. By the way, while I'm cooking this bacon down, I don't know if I mentioned it or not, you want to have a cast iron pot, but you don't necessarily have to have one. The idea is we're going to be cooking the different meats separately, and right along inside this pot, you're going to get a bunch of the, it's going to kind of look burnt. You're going to get a bunch of the, I call it gratin, but it's just I've heard some people call it fine or something. It's just little meaty, little kind of cooked bits that stick to the pot. And that's what we want. That's where we're going to get a lot of our flavor from. And that's where we're going to get our color from too, as far as the color of the actual final jambalaya. And you get a lot more of that in a cast iron pot. You don't necessarily have to have a cast iron pot. You can use any pot. You just won't get as much of that gratin. And yeah, so that's why we use cast iron. By the way, as far as how much meat, I usually go with 2 parts pork with 1 part chicken and 1 part sausage. I ended up getting a small Boston butt roast this time, so I'm not going to have as much pork as I normally would, but it's all right. Right now I'm looking at probably about the same equal parts chicken and pork, and I got a good amount of sausage. So it's really up to whatever you want as far as how much you want to put in there. And as we can see over here, that bacon's starting to cook up real nice. And if you look at the bottom, we got that nice gratin down there. And that's what we want. We want gratin. Every bit of meat that we make, we want to get a little bit of that gratin. Now, we're not actually going to have this bacon in the recipe, but it's really good to just snack on while you're cooking, because it's going to take a hot minute. So our next part of this recipe is we're going to cook down the pork. But before we do that, we'll go ahead and get some of our seasoning blend. No specific amount. Just get a little bit. Kind of cover that pork. And then we'll get ourselves a fork or a spoon or something like that. And just kind of mix it around. Make sure that it all gets a little bit. Basically, while we're cooking down the pork, we want to make sure that it's got a little bit of the seasoning in there to actually cook into the meat. All right, so here we got our little cooking snack ready to go. And we got our bacon grease in there, a little gratin on the bottom. And we got our pork all seasoned up. So we're just gonna take our pork and throw it in there. Now the pork is gonna take a hot minute to cook. It's gonna take about 40 minutes or so to cook. We wanna make sure that it cooks nice and even, all the way down. Pop myself. All right, so we got our pork cooking. I'll be back when it's getting to the next part. By the way, in case y'all are wondering just how much I like my bacon done, I like it to where it's not too crispy, but the fat ain't jiggly. That's the rule I follow. All right, so right here, I went ahead and I put the lid on the cast iron pot. And it's just keeping the lid on for about 5 minutes or so. Nothing too big or anything like that. Just get a little bit of pressure built in there, tenderize that pork a little bit better. And if you're wondering what kind of heat, I'm bouncing back and forth between medium and medium low. You don't want the fire too hot. You want to be able to just kind of get that pork cooking, make it into little pork nuggets, and then we move on from there. All right, so we got our pork nuggets. See, and they got a nice little char on them, and we got plenty of that gratin on the side, or on the bottom. So we're gonna go ahead and take this pork out, and then we're gonna put the chicken in. All right, we went ahead and put our chicken in, and yes, we did our chicken the same way we did the pork. We put a little bit of the seasoning mix into the chicken, mix it around, get a little bit of that flavor in the chicken while it's cooking down. We got our pork right here. Man, that looks good. It's a little bit well done, but it'll be good. It'll soften up a little bit once it's actually cooked in the rice. See here, let me show you this. There's the chicken. I just put the chicken in. It ain't even cooked all the way. You see some pink bits. But if you look close, see all that little meaty kind of char kind of bits that's stuck to the chicken? Yeah, that's all that gratin that we had on the bottom. That's what I like to call the goodies. Alright, so we got our chicken just about done. We still got a good amount of gratin down at the bottom. You can see it. Basically, every time you add something different to the pot and you cook something, it's gonna suck up some of that gratin. So if you're wondering like how you know when it's done or when the different meats are done, you're looking for some more of that gratin. That's basically what you're looking for. All right, so now I've done threw my chicken in the same bowl that I got the pork in, because those are both gonna go back in at the same time. Now we got a sausage. This time we're not gonna add any of the seasoning to the sausage because the sausage already got a lot of flavor. See that gratin down at the bottom? Oh, it's so good, so good. But like I said, I did, I don't know, probably about 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of pork sausage and a link or two of andouille sausage. Just for a little bit of extra flavor. And now we're just gonna cook these down. Same way. You're probably gonna get a whole lot more gratin from the sausage than you will from the chicken or the pork. Just because it's got a lot more fat in it. But it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. All right, I'll get back to you when this is done. All right, so one thing I wanted to mention, when you're cooking down the sausage and the chicken and the pork and all that stuff, one thing that you might want to think of, sometimes that grease can get real hot. Cool it down a little bit, just pour a little bit of chicken stock in there. Just enough to cool it down a little bit. That way you don't end up burning that gratin. Alright, the sausage is about done. Fixing to pull it out. You don't really want to overcook the sausage because it's still going to keep on cooking when you put it back in with the rice and everything. But yeah, you want to make sure you get a little bit of that gratin stuck on the bottom. And then just pull it out and put it to the side. You can put it in the same bowl with the chicken and pork. Tell me that don't look good. We just taste tested it. Oh boy. Alright, so I just finished pulling the sausage out. There it is sitting in the bowl. So now that all of our meats are cooked down, now we're going to start on the vegetables. And that's your boy right there. We're doing the onions. We want to sweat them onions down. We want to get them caramelized and nice and soft, translucent. Yeah, I'm going to get that. I just added the onions. They're not cooked down or anything. That color that you're seeing is from that gratin. And what's going to happen is all the acid from the onions and everything. I don't know if it's acid or magic or freaking pixie dust, but whatever it is, it's going to break apart that gratin and it's going to soak it all up. And all that flavor is going to get sucked into them onions. See how it's already getting all brown? That's not the brown onions, that's that gratin. That's what that is. All right, so now that the onions are cooked down a little bit, they're not cooked down all the way. They're not translucent yet. But they broke apart all that gratin down at the bottom. It took a little bit of scraping, but got it all up. So now that that's done, now I'm going to throw in the rest of the veggies other than the garlic. We're not going to put the garlic in yet. That's going to be the last thing because it burns easy. See, so now we got all them vegetables mixed in there. Now we're just going to let it cook down until there's like nothing left of the vegetables. It's just going to kind of do a little vegetable kind of roux or whatever you want to call it. But like I said, I haven't even touched the garlic yet. That's going to be one of the last things that we put in before we do the rice and the chicken broth. All right, so here's what the vegetables are looking like now. They're breaking down pretty good. Now you can keep on going until it's basically like a little vegetable gravy. This is about where I usually like to end it. You see all the onions are nice and transparent. All the vegetables are nice and soft. So now I'm gonna throw the meat back in there. See, I chopped up my garlic. Did about, I don't know, 5 little cloves of garlic. So that's all the meat. And we're going to give it a nice stir. Get it all nice and incorporated. And then what we're going to want to do is make sure that we got all the moisture out of here. Now we're still going to have some of the bacon grease at the bottom. But we want to get all the moisture out. All the actual evaporating liquid. We want to get all that out. Because when it comes to doing the rice, you want to make sure you get the rice and the liquid just right. So I usually go 2 parts liquid for every 1 part rice. So for this recipe, with how much meat I got, I'm probably going to go about 4.5 cups of rice. So I go about between 8 and 9 cups of liquid. For the liquid, I use the low sodium chicken broth. I do the low sodium just because I like to control how much salt is in my food. And it doesn't mess up the pre-mix seasoning that I come up with. We're also about to pour the rest of the seasoning in there. And I know it sounds like it's a lot of seasoning, but you got to think these rice dishes, all that rice is going to soak up some of that stuff, and it's going to just come out perfect. All right, so sorry about the vacuuming in the background. Hey, that's life. So about 5 minutes before you throw the rice in, you want to throw the garlic in and the rest of the seasoning. I already threw those in. That's what we're looking at right now. So in about 5 minutes, we're going to throw the rice in just by itself without the liquid. Let the rice kind of toast up a little bit, I guess you could say. And then after about another 5-10 minutes, then we'll throw the liquid in. All right, so I just threw the rice in. It's still hard. It ain't cooked yet. As far as what kind of rice you can use pretty much anything you want to. I normally use extra long grain white rice. This right here is this Mahatma parboiled rice. It's something new I'm trying. I've heard a lot of people say good things about it, so I'm gonna give it a try. And I'll let y'all know how it come out. All right, so I just poured my chicken broth in there. And now I'm just gonna wait for it to come up to a nice rolling boil. Now once it comes up to a rolling boil, now make sure when you put the liquid in there, you scrape the bottom, get all that last bit of gratin that might still be stuck down there. Make sure it's nice and smooth down at the bottom. I'm gonna bring it up to a boil, and then I'm gonna lower the heat down to as low as I can get it, probably just whatever it says low, and then cover it and let it sit for about 25 minutes, and then we'll go from there. My beautiful little helper here doing some dishes for me. So another little tip, back when we were softening the onions and the vegetables and all that stuff, if you throw a little bit of salt in there, it'll make them heat up a little bit quicker, and just knock a little bit off the time. Now I'm just still waiting for this to come to a rolling boil. This right here is Bones. That's my mom's new dog. He's been going crazy smelling all the stuff that I've been cooking here. And here's my other little helper.
Hello.
All right, so I got myself a nice little bowl going. And if I stir the rice a little bit, you can see the rice is starting to swell up. That's what we want. Now you want to give it one last good stir and scraping on the bottom. You want to make sure nothing's sticking on the bottom. And we're about to turn the heat down and let it sit for about 25 minutes. So we're gonna put the lid on and drop that heat. Got it down on low. See, still got a little fire. Nothing spectacular. Now we're gonna let it sit for about 25 minutes, and I'll be right back. All right, it has been 25 minutes, and I forgot to mention during that 25 minutes that you got it cooking on low, do not take the lid off. Do not take the lid off. So let's see what we're working with.
What did you put in here, Daddy?
So there's that. So now we just want to kind of roll the rice around. And it's not done yet. And now we're gonna put the lid back on. Turn the heat completely off. And let it sit for another 15 minutes. And then it'll be ready to serve. All right, jambalaya is done. That 15 minutes is done and over with. And this is what we got. Now I set aside some of the green onions. You sprinkle a little bit of green onions on top if you want. A little garnish. If not, hey, that's what it is.